My name is Sim. Welcome to beautiful tropical nomad here in Bali for our podcast about understanding investing in crypto, and hopefully we can help you demystify the whole idea of this blockchain, cryptocurrency, Bitcoin world and help you understand in realistic, normal terms what all of this means. So our goal here today, especially with this first piece, is to start the first part of explaining the journey of going through cryptocurrency as an investor. On the bigger picture of things, we will be using this platform to actually give you knowledge about all the different pieces of crypto, all the different industries involved, the different use cases. But for now, for the beginning, we're going to be doing a series starting with an overview, just a general macroeconomic overview of what's going on in the world, then giving you a detailed description of each one of the top 20 cryptos, not even each one, but just the ones that I'm really interested in, because I love talking about things that I'm really interested in, and then walking you through the journey of investing in cryptocurrency, staying in the market, then even exiting the market and taking profits, because all of these things tend to be pieces that kind of become a little vague and nobody seems to be really walking you through that whole journey. So before we really get into the guts of things, I have to do this little legal disclaimer. This content is for informational purposes only. I am not a financial advisor, and you should not construe any information or other material as legal, tax, investment, financial, or other advice. This is just my opinion. Please do your own research on everything and do not simply make decisions from what you have heard here today. Hopefully I can inspire you to actually create some change, but just know that you need to do your own research, and I will echo this piece again and again and again, and I'm sorry if it gets a little boring sometimes. So, like I said, today we're starting off with an overview of what is going on in the world. Why is this crypto thing becoming so much more important? Why do people believe that it has a future? What are some of the factors in the world that are driving that change? So we are going to start right down from the fundamentals. So I hope that we can build a perspective for you and a story for you that can really help you understand the importance of this entire field and how it becomes, my shirt was coming up there. Sorry guys. So we can help you understand the importance of this technology on the whole. So starting right from the bottom, we've really heard that like Bitcoin is money. Everybody's calling Bitcoin is money. It's worth $50,000 or $20,000. Like if it's being used as money, then I think it's really important for us to understand like what is the concept of money. Nobody really talks about that. You ever thought about that? What is money? So if you think about it, money is a store of energy. It's a way for you to be able to store work that's done or be able to use that energy to create goods. Because what do? If somebody works, that amount of work that's done and the amount of value that it adds to society is equivalent to the amount of money we pay them. If somebody creates goods, the value that good adds to society, we pay the creator of that good that amount of money. So effectively, money is a means for us to be able to store energy that allows you to have purchasing power, which then allows you to either do work or create some good, or on the flip side, buy some good, have some work done. So it's a means of storing monetary energy, And in the way the world works, you want to conserve as much of your monetary energy as possible, because that is how you guarantee that you have the purchasing power, that maybe you leave that purchasing power to your children so that they can actually use that purchasing power to create change in their world and live a high quality of life and all that, right? So that's how we think about money on a general term. But you notice everything around you is getting more and more expensive. So how come $35 used to buy an ounce of gold in 1971, and today $2,000 buys that same ounce of gold? Or a house that was $30,000 40 years ago is worth $700,000 today. Everything keeps on getting more and more expensive on the longer scale. And if you understand the idea of inflation, you can understand that that's the reason why. So what we like to say is a healthy rate of inflation is about 2% inflation. And that means that there's activity going on in the economy and the prices of things are going up. So people are actually being able to profit from society in general. So you can invest in something, the prices will go up later, you'll be able to actually make more money per se from it. Now that 2% inflation figure, which is considered healthy inflation, comes from something called a CPI index. So you don't need to worry about that. It's basically, they're not taking into effect things, they're not taking into the calculation as factors, things like food or education or assets. I got my notes down here, so you probably see me looking down a lot, but so those are the things that really matter to you in your life, right? Like the cost of your food, the cost of your housing, the cost of your energy, the cost of your living is what really matters to you. And the figures that were normally given by government don't really take that into effect. But when you kind of naturally try to think about things, you realize that the prices of things keep going up, yet the amount of money I'm making doesn't seem to go up at that same rate. Even though you're adding the same amount of value to society, effectively your purchasing power constantly keeps going down. So you're able to buy less and less, even with the same amount of dollars or rupiah or whichever currency you're looking at. So there's a few things going on in the world that are causing this decrease in purchasing power. So if you think about it, like, where does money come from? Who creates money? Normally, back in 1971, before 1971, money was tied to gold. So you could take your dollars and convert it into gold. It was backed by gold. We knew gold carries value. And even why do we consider gold carries value? It's pretty useless, right? But gold has been trusted since a long time ago to carry value because it has certain properties. Money was tied to gold. So you could say, okay, if I want my dollars to turn into gold, I can take that to the government and do that. And because of that, you couldn't just create money out of thin air. You had to have gold. If you had more gold, you could actually generate more money. Or if a government has more gold, they could actually put more money out into the economy. And that kind of kept things in check. But in 1971, the U.S. government decided that they no longer want to tie the U.S. dollar to gold. And when you look at the kind of the layer cake of how the world works, all the other currencies in the world are tied to the U.S. dollar. And the U.S. dollar was tied to gold. So at that time, every other currency was also tied to gold. But as soon as the U.S. dollar decided to not be tied to gold, then we have nothing backing our money other than trust. So if you think about it, how is money created today? It's actually minted out of thin air. Somebody goes into a computer and types in a number that creates the money. So if all the currencies are tied to the US dollar, how is the US dollar created? The US dollar is created by a private company called the Federal Reserve. The Federal Reserve, I can't talk today, the Federal Reserve, that the government or banks go to the Federal Reserve and say, hey, we need money. Can you make some? And they just go, yeah. What did you guys need? You need $1.9 trillion just so we can hand it out to people? Yeah, for sure. Here you go. We just typed it into a computer, into our ledger. So they effectively have a ledger, which is a balance book, basically. A book where they can just write how much money is in each account. They just go in there and then they just type it in on a computer and new money magically appears. And if any of this seems like a little fantastical and you're like, what is this guy on about? I just met him. Honestly, look into it. How are dollars created? They're just created out of thin air by some entity somewhere because some politician decided that they wanted to create more money in the system. That's not how money is supposed to work. Money is supposed to be a representation of the value that's added into society, the amount of work that somebody's done, the amount of goods somebody's produced, the amount of value those goods have added into the world. That's what the true representation of money is. But right now, just like last year, about 20% of the entire US money supply in the world was printed last year. And when we say printed, we mean like typed into a computer, but they just made it appear out of thin air. So that's like you having, 10 ounces of gold in your pocket, and somebody just goes and creates 20% of all the gold in the world. Now the gold in your pocket, because it's not as rare, it's worth 20% less. I'm simplifying things a little bit, but that's almost how it works, where if money isn't tied to any kind of value, then the person who doesn't add any value and decides that they control the money, they control that ledger where we have it written exactly how much money every person has, they just type it in there and create a bunch of money out of thin air. But effectively what they did is they took it out of your pocket because you worked hard to earn your money. You can't just create money out of thin air. If you create money out of thin air, you're going to prison. You try to make fake money, you're going to prison. But a politician can do that. A central bank can do that. And we have given them this control because we need somebody to be the central authority of like who has how much money. We need banks to be able to keep that ledger, that information to say like, Sim has $1, Jim has $2, and Carrie, she has $50 because she's worked harder and she's done the work. And we trusted banks, we trusted governments to do this work well. But now that they're printing money out of thin air and they're effectively taking out of your pocket, but even worse, that means they're taking out of our children's pockets. Because remember, you made that money so you could actually leave that purchasing power to your children. But somebody decided that they're just going to create it out of thin air without doing any work, without adding any value, and they're going to take it from you and they're going to take it from your children. That's what's going on in the world today. So if you think about it, so if I have cash and I have $1,000 sitting in my account and somebody prints 20% of the money supply, then they just took $200 from me. Okay, so cash is losing value at 20% a year. Even if you put it in a bank and they're giving you like 0.5% interest and you're losing 20% a year, that means you're losing 19.5% of your purchasing power a year. Because in the end, what is money? It's purchasing power. It's monetary energy that gives you purchasing power. Okay, I've heard stocks are a good investment. Well, stocks, the S&P 500 on a good day yields 11% a year. But if your money is losing and it's yielding 11% a year in dollars, right? Because stocks are denominated in dollars. So if I'm gaining 11% a year, but I'm losing 20% a year, that means I'm still losing 9% a year. So stocks are losing me 9% a year. And stocks are supposed to represent the value a company adds into the world, right? Like Google is valuable because Google stock is valuable because Google adds that much value to society, that society is willing to pay Google a lot of money to generate that value. And it's funny, I said pay Google and my hey Google went off. It did it again. I can't say that word. Google is listening always. So Google adds that much value to society. Therefore, we pay Google to generate that value. Apple adds that much value to society, so we pay them. But how come the world has been shut down? These companies are not able to add because businesses have slowed down and people aren't able to afford it, that the value that these companies are adding to society has gone down, yet the prices for them have gone through the roof. Their stock prices have gone through the roof. So if you think about it, they're not adding value, yet their value is going up. So fundamentally, the ethos of what the stock market is supposed to represent has completely broken down. It's no longer tied to the value that a company adds. That the prices of stocks are shooting through the roof in dollars. So is the stock becoming more valuable, or is the dollar becoming less valuable? Because both of those would cause the price to go up. So technically, the dollars are becoming less valuable because they're printing more dollars into thin air. So as more and more dollars appear, they become less and less valuable, which causes the prices to go up. And of course, the government's printing that money and giving it to companies who are doing stock buybacks. So this all gets too complicated. I remember I said we're going to keep things simple. So just think about it like that. It's not that the stocks are getting more valuable. Those companies are actually able to add less value to society, but the dollar is getting less valuable, so more of the dollars are necessary to buy that same amount of value. But I digress. bonds. If you know anything about bonds in investment, bonds are supposed to be one of the safest places to put your money. But bonds are getting near 0% returns, yet you're losing purchasing power at 20% a year, so you're losing 20% on bonds. Okay, real estate, right? That's where we're supposed to put our money. Everybody said buy real estate. That's a surefire investment. Real estate has been growing at 7% a year. You're losing your purchasing power at 20% a year. That means even real estate over the long term is losing money for you. So I know that's been a little gloom and doom, but I hope you can understand that the way the world used to work is no longer feasible for us. Buying real estate and buying stocks and all these things now has become something that does not yield the kind of returns that it used to, because back when our parents did all that, the dollar was stable. Now the dollar is becoming more worthless day by day. So if you keep cash, you lose money. If you invest in stocks, you lose money. If you invest in real estate, you're losing money. You invest in bonds, you're losing money. So where do you put your money? So where are the people with money putting their money? Where are the companies putting their money? Where are the PayPals and Teslas starting to put their money? Bitcoin has had a 200% year over year interest rate effectively for the last 10 years. So every year it returns 200%. Even if you're losing 20% of your purchasing power through dollars, through somebody printing dollars, that means you're still gaining 180% growth rate per year. That's a real number. So you can either keep your money in bonds, stocks, real estate, cash, and actually over time lose purchasing power, or you can convert it over into this new mythical money that actually has grown at a much faster rate. And this is what companies are doing. This is what investors and high net worth individuals are starting to do. So when you understand this macroeconomic situation, and if you don't, I really recommend you start paying attention to these things, because these things affect your life, affect your children's life, affect everything, but in such a subtle way that when you're going about life, you almost don't notice it. But little by little by little, they affect your life. So it's kind of like that story of the frog, you know? Like they say, when you want to cook a frog, which is a really mean thing to do, you should not be cooking frogs. But when you want to cook a live frog, if you put a frog into hot water, the frog will jump out. But if you put a frog into water and then turn up the heat so the water slowly rises in temperature, that frog will not realize it and sit there until it's cooked. And in a way, we are the frogs that are being cooked by the bigger powers that be. Because we left the trust for money with banks. We left the trust for taking care of us with the governments. We left the trust for making sure that they don't create illegal ways of stealing people's money to these entities, which were institutions. And you've probably woken up to the fact today that most of them are actually not there for our benefit. The banks have taken most of our money. The governments have actually taken most of our freedom. They've actually been implicit in a lot of the problems that exist in the world today. And the sad thing is they're being controlled by money. So then along came this thing called blockchain. Okay? Blockchain, you probably heard about blockchain. It's decentralized. It's how Bitcoin runs. There's a lot of these things around it where it sounds like, I guess, it makes sense or something. Most of the time it doesn't even make sense. What is it? If all this stuff's going on, Sam, you're telling me all these problems, show me a solution. Show me something better that actually doesn't have all these problems. So blockchain, the idea of blockchain is that it's a ledger. Let's imagine like it's a piece of paper. Because what are banks doing? Banks just have a piece of paper that says this person has this much, this person has this much, this person has this much, right? What blockchain is it's just a piece of paper. And that piece of paper has a track record of each transaction done and how much each account has. That's all it is. It's just this piece of paper is held on my computer, which when I'm mining, it's a computer that holds a ledger, and a ledger is basically just a book of accounts, basically. Let's imagine that computer is holding a piece of paper with all of the accounts written on it. Now, I'm not the only one who has that piece of paper. I have one. Itchy has one. John has one. Bob has one. Everybody here at Tropical Nomad has one. And anybody who's mining has the same piece of paper. And what mining is, they're running these computers that have effectively this piece of paper on it. That piece of paper has on it written how much money each person has, effectively how much value each person, how much purchasing power and how much value they've actually added to society that they're storing there in the form of money, right? But there's no bank. There's no one person who can go and change that ledger and say, no, we just decided Sim now has $1 million worth of value that he's added. Or a government that says, no, we're just going to out of thin air print a bunch of money and put it onto this ledger and put it into somebody's account. The reason why you can't do that is I have that piece of paper and I have on there written all the accounts, but so does everyone else. Everybody else has a multi-level checking system effectively, or multifaceted checking system where if I change anything on my piece of paper, the rest of the world won't agree with it and they'll say, no, that's wrong. We know exactly how much is in the account. And now there's no central authority that can change that. There's no central government that can forcefully put more on there and actually steal money out of your pocket. It is owned by us, controlled by us, and ran by us for us effectively. And what that allows you to do is it allows you to trust it. That like if you work hard and you earn money and you put it in there, it's not just going to, somebody's not just going to print some and actually take some out of your pocket. So that's all Bitcoin is. It's just a way of us to trust in the mathematics that are set up. So it's basically just code that we trust to store value for us. Yeah, that's all Bitcoin is. That's all the idea of blockchain is. Yeah, there's technology that's securing it, and there's hashing, and there's a lot of complicated things. But the simple way to think about it is we don't trust banks. We don't trust governments. They have messed with the ledger, the accounting books that are supposed to store a fair level of value. And now we're going to make our own ledger, our own accounting book where we store how much value each person has, and it's vetted by everybody in society who runs the network, and we can then guarantee, okay, like we have trust that we are not going to mess with our own system, and there's no single person who can. That's the idea of blockchain. That's the idea of Bitcoin. Now, why does any of that matter? Because if you think about it, like centralized institutions like banks and governments and all of them, when we gave them the trust, they actually messed it up. They actually stole from us. They actually caused all these problems, and now we're being left to deal with that world. And as things are getting more and more controlled, and governments are changing regulations and really making it harder and harder for people to actually have a good quality of life, then people are looking for ways to make sure that they can take whatever purchasing power they have right now and actually be able to safely store it somewhere, so that somewhere down the road they can give it to their kids. So like you could say, oh, well, why wouldn't I just buy gold or silver to do that? Well, if you look at it, they've even manipulated the price of gold and silver in the traditional markets. By they, I mean the people who understand the financial system and know how to play the games that are involved in the financial system, like derivatives and futures and many other financial instruments. What they've done is they've created paper contracts for gold, where you can actually trade way more gold than exists in the system. So effectively, that drives the price of gold down and artificially keeps it down. Same thing's happening with silver. I know there's a lot of these things that I'm saying that you may have to pause and go even learn about, but this is how I can at least give you a general overview of why all these problems exist, okay? And blockchain is that solution to a lot of these problems. But if you think about it, okay, so that is that is Bitcoin as a fundamental. It's just a ledger. Sorry, I keep hitting this thing. It's just a ledger where we store a certain amount of value in a way that's trusted, that nobody can mess with, and it's a digitized way for us to store value. That's one thing, right? But on a fundamental level, the idea of blockchain is actually a new way of doing the internet. You know, we're not just decentralizing banks by making blockchain or by making Bitcoin. Everything that runs on the internet is also being decentralized, and here's how. So right now, you can tell the world is being run on internet, right? 20 years ago, the internet was nothing. And today, everything runs on the internet. It's become part of everything. So how does the internet work? I keep hitting this thing again and again. I'm sorry you guys have to hear that. I click something on my phone. It is sent to a server through basically lines to a server that Google has somewhere, and Google does the work for me. So when let's say I search something, you know, when you search, I need work done. I need knowledge that needs to be sent to me. That is the work I need done. That information is sent to Google, Google's big server somewhere. Google pays for the server, pays for the staff, pays for the electricity, pays for the data, pays for everything. And basically Google does the work for me and sends me back that information to my phone. And that was value added to my life. So then Google gets paid the money because Google paid for all the work. Google did the work, so Google added the value to society. So Google gets paid all the money. That's just a fundamental way the world works and the internet works. But blockchain allows something a little different, because blockchain requires a ton of little computers to be running all over the world, that I'm running, that other people are running. Any of these miners that we call them, they're actually running computers at their houses that they've paid for. They're paying for the electricity, they're paying for the internet, they're paying for the cooling from all the heat that's generated by computers, right? They're paying for everything. So when I need work done, like for example, I need to transfer some Bitcoin, that's valuable to me. I need to transfer some value. I click something on my phone. Instead of it going to Google's big servers, it goes to this little computer that John is running at his house, and then he does the work. He pays for everything. He sends me back the information that confirms that my work is done. So I have to pay John because he added value to my life. So I pay him in Bitcoin. That's why these coins are so important. It's hard. It's always hard to understand, like, okay, why are there 1,000 coins? What do they even do? What they do is they pay for work to be done on that computer network. That's not run by Google, it's not run by Amazon, it's run by us. So we pay each other in these coins. So when I want to transfer money, I send some Bitcoin, I pay him in Bitcoin. Ethereum is another blockchain where it's like remember that piece of paper that we said Bitcoin is? It's a piece of paper that just has transactions written on it. You know, it's a ledger. Ethereum is like a little computer that's attached to that ledger or to that piece of paper. So now I can actually program things to happen on that piece of paper effectively. So what that allows me to do then is I can automate things. I can build little apps to say when something happens, pay the person this much Ethereum. So effectively, then it becomes a new way of doing the internet, where instead of work being done by these big centralized companies, now the work is being done by little people who are running the computers all over at their house, and we pay them in this coin. So when I need to do something on Ethereum, I say, you know, I need you to automate so that when my friend does this work for me, I need to pay him automatically. I don't even want to have to do this transaction. So then Ethereum allows me to do that. I program it in there, saying, set up a smart contract, it's called, saying when my friend does the work, automatically pay him in value. So the Ethereum network allows you to do that. But the blockchain in general allows the decentralization of the internet. So no longer do we need to rely on these big corporations, which, I mean, we used to trust Google, we used to trust Apple, we used to trust all these companies, and then it kind of turned out like, well, they're kind of stealing our data and they're kind of using it against us, and they're maybe manipulating elections, and now they're listening a bit too much and they know too much about me, and now I have no way out. So, again, that idea of mistrust comes in, where we no longer have the trust in them to do this. So we used to see the internet as this harbinger of freedom. Internet was this thing that was created by us, for us, and it was going to give us all freedom. But then it got turned on its head, and it became a tool of enslavement by corporations, of the enslavement of the average person. But now we have new tools where no longer do I need to depend on banks and governments to hold my value and trust them that they're not going to steal my value. I can hold that in blockchain. I can hold that in Bitcoin. I can hold that, and there's many different stores of value that are on the blockchain network. But Bitcoin and Ethereum are probably the two biggest that you hear of. So Bitcoin is a true store of value. The only job it has is to guarantee trust and store value. And Ethereum is a virtual machine, basically, that allows you to run the internet in a completely new way. Now, if you think about it, the internet has millions of different websites on it. They do millions of different things. Airbnb lets you book places, and Uber lets you order cars, and Google lets you search things, and YouTube lets you watch things, and millions of things. The same thing is true on Ethereum, where there's thousands of different things that you can do with it, and people have built those apps, effectively, they're called dApps, decentralized apps, on the blockchain, which is called Ethereum. So I hope that's given you a bit of a general overview of what's going on as far as blockchain and why it's important, and why we are moving away from this old world of centralization and trusting institutions to this new world of you're your own bank, you are your own internet, you are your own government, you are your own financial advisor, you are your own everything. It's a little scary when you think about all those things, because you're like, I'm used to trusting my financial advisor, I'm used to trusting my bank, I just want somebody else to do this. But if you truly want to make sure that you aren't being duped out of your hard-earned money, it's important for you to learn all of these things. So as we're going to be going through this, I'm going to echo this multiple times, there's a few rules that I like to give everybody, because what I do is I actually work with clients, individuals and corporations, to help them develop strategies on how to adopt Bitcoin. For corporations, how to adopt Bitcoin onto their balance sheets, and for individuals, how to invest in different cryptocurrencies in a safe manner and understand what they're doing completely, and have all of the pieces necessary to actually not lose their monetary value. Because the other thing you probably heard is a lot of people have made money in this sphere and a lot of people have lost money in this sphere. So if you know what you're doing, you definitely can make money. Again, not financial advice, but you probably can make money. If you don't know what you're doing, you definitely can lose money in this sphere. So my goal here is to make sure I help you understand and give you the tools necessary so that you yourself can be independent enough and confident enough to succeed on your journey through this cryptoverse. So here's a few rules that I give all my clients and everybody, my friends, family. I scream them from the rooftops. Here's a few things that you want to make sure you don't do to avoid losing money in this entire cryptoverse. Rule number 1, do not act from a place of emotion. As you're going through this journey, there's going to be all these points. You probably already got confused like 10 times from all the stuff that I just talked about. And we haven't even gotten started yet. We're just giving you an overview of kind of a 50,000-foot view of what's going on. But as you're getting frustrated, sometimes you might get angry, or you might feel scared or something like that. Don't act from a place of emotion. When it comes to markets, when it comes to investing, when it especially comes to something as new as cryptocurrency, the intelligent investors never act from a place of emotion, because they know emotion will cause you to take decisions which may be against your best. So do not act from a place of emotion. Do not act from a place of fear. Even though you've heard all of these things that I've said that may sound fearful, do not just use that as the launch board to go and take all these actions about things you don't understand. Do not get FOMO, which is fear of missing out. You feel like, oh God, I got to get in. Like, this sounds like a lot of good stuff. I don't want to miss out on the train. But if you don't understand it and you act, you probably will lose money. So that's rule number 1. Don't act from a place of emotion. Rule number 2, don't be greedy. Those are the 2 things, emotion and greed, are the 2 things that get used the most against people to actually cause them to lose money. There's a lot of manipulation in this market that will cause you to act in a way where you'll get emotional and you'll probably end up losing money, or you end up being greedy, and then they'll use that against you for you to lose money. So, rule number 3, always do your own research. Always. Don't just listen to anybody. Not even me. 100%. Anything you hear where you're like, wait, what? Did he just say money is created out of thin air? Pause. Go do your research. Try to disprove me. Try to disprove anybody you hear so that through that process, you'll learn more. Rule number 4, don't do what everyone else is doing. That's a really good rule. Because when it comes to actually making money in markets, everybody can't make money. It's just mathematically impossible for everybody in the market to win. A lot of people have to lose money technically for somebody to make money. So if you're doing the thing everyone else is doing, you're likely making decisions which are, first of all, coerced, and you're being pushed into making those decisions using some kind of emotional tactic or propaganda or something. But secondly, you yourself are not doing it because you know what you're doing. And if everyone else is just doing it because from a place of emotion and fear, and you're doing that with them, then you're probably going to end up at the result that a lot of people end up, which is losing money. And rule number 5, be patient. Be patient. A lot of times you'll move into this market and you'll have heard that people got really rich and all this stuff, and you'll get kind of excited or anxious, and you're not seeing any kind of activity, or you are scared that something's going to happen, and you haven't done your enough research to understand the fundamentals of what's going on, and you may make some moves too early to actually be able to make the kind of returns that you were going to make. And obviously we're here to make sure we kind of define what all these pieces mean, so you'll learn a lot more. But just be patient. Investing is not for the people who are trying to get rich tomorrow. Investing is for the people who understand that on the longer term, you are able to invest the hard-earned money that you've earned, and you're able to grow it and create a better life for yourself, gain financial freedom, leave it to your kids, get your mama a house. So as long as you understand that you're playing this game on a much longer scale, that increases the likelihood of you actually winning. Because the companies that are investing, they're not investing to make money tomorrow. They don't play on a 1-year scale. They play on 5, 10, 15, 50, 100, infinite scales. So if these are the kind of players that you're playing against, you need to have that same kind of mindset of knowing that you're patient enough and you have a long-term enough vision that you can actually ride out the tough parts and actually manifest your abundance in the good parts. So I digressed a little bit there, but I hope that's given you a bit of an overview of what's going on in the world, why right now is such an opportune time to actually start thinking about moving out of that traditional world, that traditional way of thinking, the traditional structures that we've been so used to, and moving towards this thing that seems a little scary, but once you actually understand it, you understand, wait, this is the new way of doing the internet. That's great. New internet sounds good. It's like the internet's been invented again. It's a new way of doing banking. It's a new way of doing trust. It's a new way of doing money. And a lot of these corporations and Tesla and PayPal and Square and all of them and Visa are all waking up to this reality. And that should at least give you enough trust to start looking in this direction. So I really appreciate you being here with me. And we'll see you in the next piece, where we'll be discussing the different cryptos and how to really understand them and how to look into the details of what each one does, and maybe get a better understanding of how you want to be able to build a mental model of this whole sphere. So thank you so much for your time. Much appreciated. I'll see you guys next time. Much love. Bye for now.